Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Wild Woman Podcast. I've a lovely guest with me today, Shauna Brady. She's from, or based in Galway, I should say, on the west coast of Ireland. She works as a shamanic practitioner. She does land and house healings, facilitates circles. I was in a keening circle with her a few weeks back. We can talk a bit about that. She runs Rahani healing courses, womb healing blessings. Yeah, so much. So what I'd love to start with, because there's so much in that to unpack, but what started you on this path of healing? I always think it's such an interesting thing to hear people's story, because usually, from my experience, it's often been something quite challenging that has led us to this path. And I think it's useful. And as much as we want to share or can share what has led us there, would you like to start with that, Shauna, please? And welcome, firstly, to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Celine. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for asking me on. Yes, my origin story, I suppose, it's like many people in 2012, there was massive shifts in my life. And I was in a relationship, I was engaged to a man. It was a very toxic relationship. He had a lot of issues. I had my own. And we were in the midst of breaking up and getting back together. And my mother witnessed an episode that we had one night. And she was quite frightened for me. So she said, this has to stop type thing. And because she was into it herself, she thought bringing me to an energy healing session would help me, just to build up a little bit of courage or resilience or whatever I needed to step away from this man. So, a fabulous energy healer. And yes, I went in and she, yeah, beautiful presence. And she did a fabulous angel healing for me. And I saw all these colors. I could really feel the presence of the angels and the energy moving. And I was just hooked after that. I was like, what is this? I have to know what this is and more about it.
And had you ever experienced this before? Was this a
No,
totally new experience for you?
this was totally new to me. I'd never seen like just the beautiful pink and blue colors, and that fabulous light energy that the angels bring. I had when I did the shamanism training, I could definitely resonate with a lot of that heavy energy that you connect with uh, when you're doing that healing work. But yeah, no, the initial light energy got me in the door. Yeah, so I went home and I said I'd wait until the next day, make sure that I was ending the relationship with my fiance or my ex-fiance myself. I didn't want to feel like, oh, I'm feeling really good, so I wanted to be coming from me. So I waited a day, and I was like, yeah, no, I still definitely want to do it. So I just my whole life changed then. Yeah.
That sounds like it happened quite quickly for you, Shauna. Like, did you obviously then, as you said, you broke off the engagement. Did you change other aspects of your life, or how did that then start to unfold? Because I often think, or I've experienced it myself, that we may come to a realization and we have to take a step, and then it's okay, there's a whole new path that's could be heading, in this way for me. Or so how did you sort of navigate that? I think that's really useful for people just to get a sense of if they're
Yeah.
in a similar position in their lives with something difficult.
And I suppose it sounds like it happened really quickly, I suppose, but in a way it didn't, in that I was going out with this guy and living with him for about 7 years. So it was 7 years of tough challenges. And you know yourself, even after a
Mm,
year, it can be
mm,
like, oh no,
mm,
I need to get away from this. But I
mm,
suppose because of um my wounds, I couldn't abandon him. It felt, he had his challenges. He kept promising he'd work on them. And I kept seeing the best in him, which is a lovely virtue to have when you see the best in people. But um, I didn't have the confidence, the self-respect maybe to say no, I deserve better than this, and I can't help you. So we need to separate. But there was so many different aspects and things that were going on throughout that time. So I know I learned a lot from it as well. I had really good times too. Um, but when I got to that point of meeting the healer, I think I was at a point that a lot of people get to where they're like, there has to be more to life. Like, I know there is, and there was a knowing in me that there was, but I just hadn't seen it yet. And then when I saw it, I was like, yes, that's it. I'm gone. This is
mm,
this is where I'm meant to be. Um, and and I suppose I didn't really think about it until now, but the angels probably helped me to understand and to see that I couldn't help him, that
mm,
we have to do the work ourselves. And much as we can walk with someone on their journey, we can't do it for them. We can't lead them or take on their stuff or take it away from them as much as we want to. Yeah.
mm.
So yeah, it was, I mean, I until I see, I just started slowly going to a few different meetups and little mini workshops on energy healing. And I had a lovely teacher, Jerry Coleman. He's from County Kildare, and he's incredibly intuitive and connected, and he was wonderful. He does wonderful mediumship work, um, which I was very intrigued by, but I wasn't ready for at all. So
Mm.
uh, he also introduced me to pathway teaching in Galway, and that's when I started my shamanic studies in 2014. So yeah,
So would
so
you
it,
say that was the sort of, I wouldn't say the start, it isn't the start, but like that really opened up that path for you, would you say, when you sort of moved into shamanism or a shamanic, yeah, that sort of training? Um, because it sounds as well like what I found in my life, and I'm hearing you sort of saying it as well, that once we sort of let go, I'm still doing that every day, trying to do that. We are shown the way, and I know we have to find that within ourselves. There is something, going back to what you said there around the self-worth piece, because that seems to be a big part of it until we sort of recognize that, yeah, who you really are, and I'm worth more than this, as much as you can love and care for other people. Um, but definitely there has to be more to life. I totally resonate with that, because I had that feeling one day in my car driving to work again and again in the traffic, and it was no longer fulfilling me. And I just remember there has to be more. If there isn't, I want off this planet. Like, I nearly got to that stage. So that obviously had sort of arrived in your world as well through a relationship. Like, is it your experience as well that it's often with people you meet and you work with, that it's often a challenge that, or something sort of quite rattling, that gets them on this path?
absolutely. Even with one-to-one clients, a lot of the time it's because the regular stuff, from the doctors or certain talk therapies, which are fantastic, but sometimes they only go so deep. and they're just hoping that this other modality that they've heard about will help them. In particular with the shamanism, I suppose, because you just enter a whole new world of the different realms and the different energies and all the various things that affect us that we're not even aware of. But yeah,
you can
it's
talk maybe a
definitely,
little bit for someone who's totally new. I think most people have heard of shamanism, maybe don't have direct experience, but maybe just, to explain that a
yeah.
little bit and talk through it.
So I suppose the main thing with shamanism, it's more of a way of living, a way of being. It's reconnecting with Mother Earth, with the cosmos, uh, and with ourselves. We are the connection between the two. They both meet within us. So it's in many ways connecting and revisiting our relationship, excuse me, with Mother Earth, with the cosmos, but in particular with ourselves. And then within that is the many different topics that comes up, like the inner child healing, ancestral healing, um, healing of past lives, different timelines. It really does, and it depends on each person. Um, Not that they'll specialize as such, but a lot of people are drawn to different areas that they really resonate with, or that spirit really wants them to work with, that they can help people in particular. So, and that can be a number of different areas. It's not just one. But like that, and in ways like myself being drawn to the womb work, I, uh, although I still do the womb blessings as shown by Miranda, I also do a lot of shamanic healing with the womb work as well. So I am more of a shamanic practitioner, I think, really. And yeah, and that's just, it's still developing. So I'm trying to count, I think it's 12 years now. Yeah. And yeah, it's just still going deeper and deeper. And as you said, with even the shamanic cleaning circle that we did, just whole new levels of understanding and clearing and witnessing everything that came up and comes up with the cleaning, in particular the ancestral patterns that we carry out, that we carry, and it not just being patterns but actually ancestors, and being able to release them, and as well as the patterns, which is fantastic. And then to recall our energy, or any aspects of us that were lost, because when we're carrying out these other aspects, or carrying these energies, it's taking up our space. So we become smaller, we shut down parts of ourselves. So it's the shamanism, it's all about, no matter what way you do it, I suppose, it's all about coming back to yourself, reawakening your energy, your body, and your aura, all aspects of yourself. Yeah.
It sounds very much to me like, since I've been on this path, I call it like a path of remembering. I think if you go on this path, and we've reached the point which you said of there has to be more to life than this. So that has to have sort of woken up in you that, like, I just can't keep living like this. There is something that there is sort of, I suppose what I'm trying to say is there's probably an openness when people come to you, nearly like someone unlocking the door for them and going, yes, you're right, there is something more and I can help you find it. I know you work in many different ways. So maybe just to talk about, maybe we'll just talk for a moment about the keening, because I think that's really interesting. And I know it's hard to talk about, but, to describe, but it's an ancient Irish tradition, isn't it? Like going back many generations.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And they say that Goddess Bridget brought it to Ireland.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have her on my wall.
Do you? Oh, fabulous.
Instinctively, I found a picture and I brought it to your keening circle without knowing that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and even further back, there's been research that Goddess Isis in Egypt
Mm.
keened as well. So it is something that we instinctively do or feel like we should do. I'm sure anyone that has lost someone close will know that feeling and that visceral need to release and to wail and roar. But of course we're not allowed to do that anymore. Um, and that blocking of our emotions, of our grief, of our anger and frustration and everything that comes with it causes so much hurt to us emotionally, and that can lead to um, physical issues like depression. They've linked it to a lot of I'm trying to think now exactly. I don't want to say anything.
Okay.
But they have linked it to a lot of physical issues that people have, a lot of like heart issues, a lot of lung
Mm.
issues. Um,
Mm.
the I think for me, I grew up in a house where there was a lot of grief. Not intentionally. All houses have grief,
Mm.
but um, you know, my parents got together just after my father's brother died, and I was named after him. His name was Sean,
Mm.
and I was called Shauna, and I carried that um, out of love for my father, thinking I was helping him in his grief. But I also carried my uncle because I was named after him, and even though he was dead, there was that need for him to be remembered and carried on. So I carried him as well. And also my mother has still some unshed grief for her father that she lost when she was very young. So there was a lot of grief, and in a normal Irish house, how it's dealt with is just, bury it. But it's always there, it's always lingering. And as a sensitive person, we can always pick up on that. And because we love our parents, we try to help them and carry that as well. So for me, the keening has been incredible for really seeing and allowing that to come up and to be released and heard and witnessed and everything that's needed. And then for those beautiful spirits just to be let go, because unintentionally, and we don't mean to do it, we hold on to them out of love, but when we're holding on to them, we're keeping them here, we're keeping them trapped, and we're keeping ourselves trapped, and we can't move on fully in our lives, and do all the good things that we're meant to do. And we can get a tendency then to just connect with the bad things that our ancestors went through. So we connect with other people and other ancestors that had a lot of grief or that had certain traumas, rather than connecting with the ancestors that had wonderful, happy lives, that had loads of abundance and that had joyful experiences, that are happy to connect with us as well. But we're so stuck in the sadder times that we can really get pulled down into that. And I would have been like in my later teenage, well, probably early teenage years as well, I would have been very I would have suffered, I suppose, if I was gone to a doctor like tomorrow or whatever, they probably would have put me on antidepressants. I was quite quite depressed. Um in college, I had an experience where I was in art college for a year, and for whatever
Yes, I
reason,
didn't know that about you, that you have beautiful art.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had a box cutter, and just this thought popped into my head to slit my wrist. And then another thought came in, no, there's something more. There's more coming. You don't, it's going to get better. So I suppose that was probably supposed to be an awakening moment, but because I was so stuck in my heaviness and that depressive energy, it didn't really dawn on me like to inquire into what that was. I just, I kept going, and I know that that was a part of my learning too. But it was a very long time, and I think I would have benefited a lot more if I had have been aware of shamanism and all these tools that are available to us to help where I feel the medical system sometimes fails. It doesn't have the understanding that of how these energies affect us and how simple it can be to let them go.
Mm.
You know, yeah. I mean, it's still a process, and it's different for everyone. But um, I'm not sure if I answered your question properly
No,
there.
you have. There's so much to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so how would you describe how, and I know it's an ongoing process because I think it's just like layers and layers, but
Mm.
I always feel I don't want to make that sound like work, but how when I describe it for me is that yes, there are more layers and more layers, but they're faster and there's more joy and more energy that comes with each one. Whereas at the beginning, it's quite difficult. It's like cement, and it's sort of this is where, and I talked about it a lot because I think it's a really helpful for people. The grief part of it, which I didn't understand, has been a big part of my journey. And I was sort of terrified of it, going, what is this? You know, when I finally sort of, I suppose, stopped the suppression, when I wasn't able to suppress, and I see it nearly like there's a boiling pot of water, and there's a point that all of us will likely hit at some point, and we do at various stages when it just boils over. It's like, I can't, it's like, this has to come out. And maybe it's in a way that's illness or depression or something that, or whatever behaviors or relationships. So the keening, yeah, so it's just even to sort of, I suppose it's where I've come across it, where that can be quite scary a little bit at the beginning, because it's like, what is this? So I think it's very helpful what you said there, even around the ancestral, like to know that the various energies, like, because we can start judging ourselves and say, what's wrong with me? There must be something. I must be very unwell. And I've heard many people, and I've felt the same. So so a lot of, is it that the ancestors, if they have carried grief, this energy, because everything is energy, and they never had an opportunity to sort of release it, that it will try and find expression somewhere in a family. It's going to be, that's the ancestral sort of pattern that's carried down. Is that how that shows up? Is it primarily
Well,
grief?
I think it's more that because no one ancestrally, and anyone that knows anything or that has done um the oh gosh,
Is it
what's
the
it called?
family constellations?
The
No?
constellation.
Yes, I've done that. Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. Yeah, but
Mm,
you can see how we carry our ancestors out of love.
mm,
So it's because we don't want anyone to be left behind. But of course, they're generally the people that have been through a lot. Um, and oftentimes when we're going through our
challenging life experiences. So say you go through a really bad breakup and you're feeling utterly rejected and humiliated or whatever, an ancestor who also experienced that can often step forward and say, I've been through this too. I can, help you get through this. I can like hold your hand and everything, we'll get through it together. And it's wonderful that they do that. And it's they do help us. So it's very symbiotic relationship that we have with them as well. But the thing is, after the breakup, when we're feeling better, they're still there. And 5 years later, when we're in a new relationship, they're still there, feeling rejected and feeling what they felt. And 10 years later, they're still there. We have to, when we don't release them, we can still feel those emotions because they're still there. It's not necessarily that we haven't healed our wounds, because oftentimes we have, or we've 90% healed them. But because we're still carrying this person that was wounded, we can pick up on those feelings. So we can still be feeling like, why am I feeling rejected? And you're never comfortable then in your new relationship, and you're worrying, I'm going to be rejected again. So this is an example, I suppose, of some of the ways that they can affect us. They do absolutely help us. I'm not saying that it's a really bad thing to have. And it's wonderful when we connect with our ancestors that are fully ascended and can really guide us from their heart, where there's no agenda and no fear. But when they're not, it can have serious effects on us. And that's what I would have picked up, and I would have had spirits with me when I had my depression and those suicidal thoughts. So it's, again, and it does depend on your sensitivity and how much you've been around heaviness and heavy energies. But it can have serious effects on certain people. Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of us, really, we're all born sensitive. It's just numbed down on us.
Yeah. But it's wonderful for people, I think, to hear, to know that it's just a reminder to me how connected we are, how we are at one with everything, really. And, when you start to feel that, I think that's just a personal place you get to, there's no, it's not an ABC. There's just something that happens where it starts to open up in you. That's how I described my experience with cancer, because everything else stopped, my mind, my body. And I never then felt so at peace. It was like this whole just big cracking open. That's all I can describe. But the only words, that something that greater took over, that I was, little me had to step out of the way and just allow this. And then it's just been unfolding. And there is a lot of healing with it. The other side, I suppose, there's the ancestral. So I assume if someone, comes to you individually, that's sort of the work you will get to, where they're at, what is going on with them personally. Is it something maybe from something of a past life of theirs? Because I think, as well as the ancestors, is that another dimension to it as well?
Yeah, and I suppose it, as you were saying, we do it in layers. It's like this onion that everyone talks about.
Yeah, big onion.
Yes, with so many layers, but and for everyone it's different. Some people peel back a few layers and it's like, yes, and everything falls into place, and that's it, and they have their reconnection, and they go and live their lives as they wish. And for other people, they might have a little bit more work, or they're really pulled down the path of healing, because they have something to share with the world as well. So yeah, generally when someone comes to me, I like to get them to pick. Sometimes people just want to come and have a Rahani session because it's on the lighter scale. it's connecting with the angels, and it's working with the heart, and it's just, it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's absolutely, so is the shamanism, but it's just, I suppose, different vibrations. And then some people will choose just to have a shamanic session, and it's usually they'll come in, we'll have a chat and see what's coming up, and I generally get guidance then if there's energies, spirits with them, if it's connected to a past life as well, because usually what happens is we'll have an event in our life. So say you're kicked out of your house, I don't know if you're renting, and it triggers a past life where you were kicked out of your house, but in that past life what it meant was that you and your family died because you didn't have any shelter, you lost your farm, you had nothing to eat, there was no one, maybe there was poverty at the time and no one could help you. So or maybe it meant that you had to go to America, or whatever the case might be. It's our current life situations that often trigger the past life ones. So yeah, it's to connect back to those as well, and to release those experiences of whatever's coming up, so that we're not reliving it in this lifetime. Yeah.
I
so
can sorry,
No, you're fine. And then also it's usually a thing of ancestrally clearing that then as well. So it's sometimes it is just one thing that's happening in this moment, and that's usually, simple enough to clear, but oftentimes it is actually connecting in a few different ways.
And
then, sorry.
No, go on. Yeah, sorry. There's a little bit delay sometimes, so I'm interrupting you.
Even then, just to check in, like, inner child, and making sure all that it's all integrated, and yeah, it can be wonderful to come and have one or two sessions, but if you're doing that deeper work, it can take a little bit longer. And that's when I think a lot of people find that doing the training is really beneficial.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that you will be, doing the full becoming a shaman and doing the work yourself, but often doing the training, it's giving you that longer period of being in the healing, the work, and doing it yourself, which is very empowering too.
Yeah, because that's the ultimate, I suppose, aim. And as you said at the beginning, at the end of the day, because sometimes, we hear the word healing so much that people can go, oh God, I hear about healing again. Like it's my whole life going to be healing and crying. And I often think it's sort of more, the ultimate is really, as you said, it can be, longer or shorter or deeper, and it's different for everyone. But the ultimate, say aim maybe is the wrong word, but it's really about coming back, as you said, isn't it, into who did you come here to be, and your potential and your power. And I suppose that's sort of what we're here to do ultimately, and enjoy it and create. And wasn't that sort of the end? That's sort of the hope for all of us, rather than it being, I have to just find a way to keep going as I'm going, and find some medication or whatever it is that will just keep the lid on everything. That to me is sort of the lid has to come off if you want to really.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it? I listened to someone last night saying, we can all talk the talk and talk about healing and talk about, but you really have to, it's like walking through fire. We each have to do it. And, in our own way, it sounds very hard, but unless you can tell the difference if someone has or hasn't, but like it really does entail doing that yourself in your own way. isn't it? And it's a very unique path for each of us.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone is
Yeah.
different, and there's no judgment. We've all been through some crazy experiences in our lives, and it's just and a lot of experiences that we just don't want to share with people as well. But it's accepting and honoring that and saying, yeah, that's who I was. It's not who I am now. Let's find out more about who I really am and what I came here to do. I'm not just here to sit in an office 5 days a week and have 2 days of resting because I'm wrecked. Or, it's about, and if you are doing that, that's finding the space and the joy in that, and getting out of nature as much as you can and reconnecting in that way. But even bringing that healing into, like, I think all the careers out there could do a little bit of softening, maybe a little bit more heart energy and reconnecting. We've become very disconnected.
Yeah.
And even with COVID, it's become even more. It's funny, in some communities it brought them together more, and in others it separated them even further. So
Or maybe that needed to happen, I suppose. It's like with personal relationships and different things, maybe it's like to me, like shining the light in the dark in ourselves and everywhere else. Like, this is sort of what feels like is happening on a planet. This is what is happening. We're returning to our natural frequency and state, I believe, over time, and isn't it? And we, as a result of that, every time I feel, oh yeah, and I'm looking out at the world, and then I see something else in myself going, oh my God, does that really have to come up? Like, I don't know. No, I'm all fine now. You're always brought up. What I found in my experience, every time I'm out there pointing fingers, I'm usually brought back to myself and, like, where is that going on in me? So I suppose that period, any difficult period, it seems like there is something. This is part of the evolution, I suppose. How would you describe what is, and say what is happening, but where we're at? You do a lot of work as well with the land, I know, and house healing. So how do you sense energetically what is going on in our planet and our world?
Well, this year has been phenomenal for clearing. Oh my gosh. I think anyone that's been doing self-development or energy work has, I thought last year was meant to be like the big year and we'd get a break this year, but no, it's been amazing. I have to say, and I have to credit, I think, the keening workshop, because and this was always a thing in my mind, but someone said before that, as sorry, I can't remember who, but they said you can only go as high, like your frequency, as you can go deep. So that has always been my kind of, okay, I want to go really high, so I need to go deep. So the keening has really helped me with that this year as well. But it's that high, and the equivalent of that high as well, that I have experienced and noticed coming in with people, that they're able to let go of the heaviness a lot quicker now. They're able to connect more quickly with the higher frequencies and vibrations, the angels and archangels, and in particular with the Rahani, and the beautiful heart opening that brings. It sometimes can be challenging too, because obviously we only close our heart when it's something painful, and that needs to open as well. But it does seem like there's so much more light flooding into the planet at the moment. And there's so many more people becoming aware of energy, becoming aware of what's affecting them, food-wise, energy-wise, like exercising. It's really becoming a mind, body, soul thing. So it's fantastic to see. That's
Yeah. What do
yeah.
you notice with the land? Like, it always strikes me with Ireland, and I suppose I've been reconnecting with nature more, exactly like you said. I felt I was in a box living in a, that sort of, I don't know, inorganic world, if want of a better word, that has sort of been like, I heard someone, a beautiful woman I interviewed, describe it like this organic planet, and there was sort of this big inorganic layer sort of artificially placed over it. And it's not, that's saying it's all bad, but like we've ended up in often like that, little offices and boxes, and that's fine, because as long as you find your way through that, and as you said, get out in nature and things. But how do you notice, like Ireland, I've always felt, well, it is a very sacred country and a very spiritual, I can feel it now if I go out. I'm very drawn to going out to sacred sites and just visiting them and just being there. I feel it. Can you sense a different, like, so what sort of work do you do with the land when you do you do clearings of land, is it, or just
Yeah,
that you
so
work out? Yeah.
I do clearings of land and houses. So again, I suppose it's not the pretty light stuff. It's more connecting with the heaviness that's present. If there's any spirits or entities or energies that are there. Again, it's very similar to with the ancestral thing. They're there, they came to help someone originally, usually. Sometimes some of the energies can come just to feed off the heavy energy because they feed off heavy energy. But then they get comfortable and they want you to keep feeding them. So they keep you in heaviness. They can attach to us and feed us negative thoughts and feelings. So it's really about releasing those, helping to clear any old imprints or say like memories that are trapped in houses. Yeah, there can often be spirit lines or spirit roads, so paths that spirits walk, and they can go sometimes through houses, as well as the ley lines and the there's there's a lot
Yeah.
to it as well.
Yeah.
And then it's generally whatever comes up as well. I tend to do some healing for the people that live there as well. So sometimes, say the last house that I did a clearing for, her mother had been very sick for years, so there was still an imprint of her in the bed, one of the beds where she had her bedroom. So it was really just to release that as well. And yeah, oftentimes it's even just helping the person to let go of whatever, especially if it's a childhood home, whatever happened there, just to let it go and say, okay, this is my new fresh home, and not starting again as such, but having a fresh start, and bringing in that lightness that the earth brings with it, because a lot of the time, when, especially if we're connecting, instead of connecting to Mother Earth, sometimes we can connect to her energy body, in particular her emotional energy body, which can carry a lot of heavy energy. So it's about reconnecting with the abundance and the loving energy that she provides us. So I suppose that's not specifically just for the house healing, but I do that in the one-to-ones as well. But yeah, sorry, I just
No, it's beautiful, because just when you say that, I can remember, and I only realized it after, it was really after cancer, and I was going out for walks, which I'd never really done. And I feel it to this day still, like what you described, a sort of a connection in a deeper way to the earth. Like I really got the sense of, gosh, it's so abundant, that word, and that has always been probably a challenge in my own life, the sort of scarcity mindset and growing up in it. And I suppose it's part of probably Irish history as well, and carrying this, there's never enough, and oh my God. And it's sort of shifting. I found part of that for me has been shifting and letting go of that, yeah, sort of mindset of, oh, there won't be enough, and opening up to that everything is provided, because I have found that through the path I've been on in a way that's been very unexpected. Like a lot of it does seem to be, as well as the clearing, a lot of letting go. Like, what would you say is the biggest, what's the word? Not the biggest challenge that people face in a healing journey, or like in coming to someone like you or someone else? They may be struggling, going through illness, depression, whatever it is, a breakup of a relationship, loss of someone, and they know, I really know that, this is on a bigger scale than just, I want to go to the doctor and get a tablet, or just stuff it down, whatever way, drink or something else. What say, what is the biggest, like, do you come across sort of a block that can sometimes derail that process?
I think the fear of what'll it be like when I stop doing X, Y, or Z. What'll it be like when I leave this bad relationship? What if I never meet anyone? Those fears that come up. It could be worse. I could be on my own forever, which oftentimes, if we have an abandonment wound, can actually feel worse than death. It can bring up that real fear. So oftentimes the biggest challenge is I'd say maybe the inner child that is like, no, I'm not comfortable, but I know what's happening. I know where I'm safe and where to go when I'm not safe. So don't change anything, and sometimes that can be so, so powerful. And even seeing that where we're doing that can be a big eye opener, absolutely. In the Rahani, she says, Carol says, for her three main things are truth, love, and compassion. And truth is a big one. And a lot of the time we don't want to, we have our little story of what happened, and we don't really want to see. They say there's three sides to every story: your side, their side, and the truth. So it's often, opening up our awareness of how things actually are, and not going down these little roads of maybe into, I don't want to say victimhood, but those parts that want us to stay the same because they're afraid of change. So, and having that compassion for ourselves when we see it and saying, okay, well, maybe we won't do it today, but, continue to work with that. And, unless it's something that has to be done immediately. But yeah, and then the love, sending that self-love, and really working on that. Self-love is a big obstacle, I think, for a lot of people, because we're told, and it's not just women, but very large part is women, who are always told to come second, and to put everyone else first. Other people's needs are more important, and it's loving to put other people first. So yeah, truth, love, and compassion.
Yeah, I love that. I think, yeah, the truth, I can totally identify with that, because I held on to many stories for years, and until the point you just, you can't, and it just wasn't sustainable. Something happens that is saying, okay, we're going to help you get out of this or something, something happen, you're just ready for another layer of the truth. And I can relate to that abandonment because, and I just share this because there may be other people listening who feel it or have felt it, but I definitely at times have had, and I think that was part of going to the keening, a sense of grief and abandonment that goes beyond the situation I'm in, and I recognize it. And I know it's exactly like you said, it's like I would have described it as if I was worse than death. That is the exactly, and it sounds so crazy to say it. Like I used to think I must be, what is going on here? That, but I recognize that it's that, there's something there in that. So I think it's very that the truth, but also, and all of it, and the compassion, because often we're very hard on ourselves and say, well, you just have to get on with it. Look, what's it going to do by dwelling on it? And it's to show ourselves, isn't it, that compassion to say, you did, we've all done the best we can. I think everybody is, with what you've got at the time, but you sometimes need someone to so that is that a big part of you, sort of, not saying pointing, but sometimes we do need someone. I've had it in my life, even if I didn't ask for it, someone gently able just to point me and go, maybe what you're seeing is not the full picture.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
And
I
how
would
it
have
can,
the guidance like that in sessions and groups to share with people. And of course, it's, if the person isn't ready to hear it or to see it, that's absolutely perfect as well. You just don't get the guidance to share it with them, and that's fine. And I know for myself, I would have absolutely been like that at certain points in my journey where, I was working so hard on one aspect that I was completely blind to another, that when I got them, when I put them side by side, then I saw the truth and I was able to let the whole lot go. But it's not until we're ready, and we have the tools to do it, and maybe it's that we need a little bit more self-love, a little bit more self-care, where we have physically even more energy to make these changes. And there's so much to it. So it's definitely compassion and understanding, and being kinder to ourselves.
And listening to ourselves, isn't it? Because like you said, the ultimate part, this is coming back into our own power so we can live the life we came here to live. Like, really, sometimes we don't focus on that. We focus on, the other side. Can I just to sort of, I'm going to say wrap up, but just, I'm curious, you mentioned there as well with women that a lot of what you're seeing is self-love would be a big one that would show up, sort of, is it? You said often they're sort of conditioned to put others first. When you're working with men, because obviously you work with men, I assume, as well. Is there a different issue that you would see, or a different wound, or
well, as I said, a lot of men have that wound as well.
okay, the self-love,
but I suppose from what I've seen, and this is only a small percentage of the population, there would be a lot of mother wounds. Now, of course, women have mother wounds too, but for men, the mother wound can be particularly strong, because they're our first point of connection, our first point of love. Same for daughters, but it's very hard for men, I suppose, because men have more been taught about dealing with emotions by going into anger, frustration, and just shutting the whole lot off. And I know there's been a lot of more education around that nowadays, but I suppose the age group that I work with older men, so it's more, they more shut down. So they can be very disconnected from their emotions. So it is working slightly different with men, but it all comes back to the same thing, really. It's
Yeah.
not, yeah.
But it's lovely to see that men are as well. I think sometimes, you know, the focus not has been more on women, but at the end of the day, it's how I sort of feel by each of us, that's my sense. I've noticed it. The more I've sort of done the work on myself, you start to meet people who are sort of mirroring that, and it's almost not I don't know how to describe it, but it also nearly activates that in someone else. It gives them permission, because if you're doing that work yourself, then they can, and I found it in conversations I have, and particularly with one or two men, and then they start to open up about what they've been going through and that they're doing some healing work. And I'm meeting more and more men who seem to be doing that just in day to day, or, you know, if I'm in some group work thing, which is really nice to see, because it just feels, yeah, they've sometimes got a bit of a hard rap and had to put on a brave face a lot in life. And like you said, so it seems whether we're men or women, we have to access that emotional side of ourselves. And you know,
Absolutely,
is
yeah.
the, isn't it? It's really the
Yeah.
only man
Yeah.
or woman. And if someone was very new to this type of work, Shauna, would you suggest is a group sort of workshop or event maybe the best way in if you're a little nervous, or would it be better to come one-on-one, or
I think one-on-one would be
one-on-one
better.
first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to
Okay.
get an idea of, well, I suppose it would depend on the group
Yeah.
as well, you know. There's some fabulous event circles and events going on with a number of different, so say yoga and meditation and cacao ceremonies and all that kind of thing. And that's a lovely, gentle way in as well. And but if you felt like there was something that you wanted to shift, or you know, you were maybe carrying a lot of heaviness, then definitely one-to-one it would be more appropriate, I think, just to help and give an understanding of what it entails. Yeah.
Because ultimately, doesn't it? It feels like, well, it, for me, is it comes down to you have to feel whatever it is for it to leave or clear. There is, as you said at the beginning, I know there's great talk therapies, there's loads of things, and it's been my experience too, but you have to allow that. And I think that goes back to the keening as well and the shamanic work. All of this has to, it's energy, so it has to leave us physically. Doesn't, that's the only way I have found, and I've tried many other ways to to probably bypass or move through things in my life, but I think the greatest freedom, that's the one thing I would see, is the greatest freedom comes when you feel things, because they can leave a lot of times. I'm sure, I know you've had lots of it, but it can leave quite quickly too,
Yes, it
can't
can.
it? It's often the story that can hold us,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it's when, say, the grief is leaving, and it's then allowing us to open up and reclaim our space, reclaim our field as such.
Yeah.
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 So it's that relief then. Oh, it's gone, and you're just yourself again, you know. And that's the ultimate aim, really, I think. is
Yeah.
and that is a burning question that I think most people have, is like, who am I? Like, other than what I do, you know, or who I am to other people, like, who am I to me? You know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Shauna. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and listen to you. And I know we're only sort of touching on the surface of many things here, just to give a flavor, because I know you can't explain all of these things. You know, it as you said, it's a way of being, and it's a journey. Different people may or may not go on at different points in their life, but it's a nice introduction and opening. And for people who, you work privately, I mean in person, but also on Zoom, don't you, as well? Or
I
just
do,
if
yeah.
people want to make contact, what's the best way?
Well, to make contact,
Yeah.
would be by phone or on social media. So I'm on
Okay.
Facebook
And
or Instagram. Um, White Rose Healing House.
Yeah, I'll
And
add it all at the bottom. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, just to give
In
them a
terms of
buzz.
working, sorry, I probably should have said more in
Yeah.
working with people, you'll work in person, is it? Or and as well as on Zoom. Can you do?
No, I can work on, yeah, I can
Yeah.
work on Zoom or remotely, not on Zoom.
Mhm.
It does depend on what's needed to be
Mm.
done. Sometimes it's better in person. Sometimes Zoom is absolutely fine. But I need to chat to the person to see
Yeah,
what's
of course. I
yeah.
know. I know. And what have you coming up in the next few months? You mentioned you have a few classes and trainings.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I started a meditation class in Bridge yesterday.
Oh, very good.
It had slipped it had slipped my attention that it was bank holiday, but anyway, we
Oh,
started
yeah.
yesterday. It was lovely. And then yeah, I have various courses training with the Rahani level 1 and 2. And I have I haven't completed the planning of it yet, but I have Introduction to Shamanism day coming up in June or July.
Oh, wonderful. So that's a nice
Yeah.
way just to dip your toe in, get a sense of what shamanism is about, and then see, as you said, if you want to take it further or do more training.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it is quite a commitment, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's a long time, and it's not cheap either. So, you know, I think it's good to give people good view into what it can entail, because again, it's different for everyone. But yeah, and yeah, then I just have my usual bits that going on, you know, every now and then. I think myself and one of my moon mother sisters, excuse me, are doing a women's circle for the worldwide womb blessing in May. So that'll be coming up in a fortnight as well. So, but it'll all be up on my social media.
Okay, is the best way to.
Yes, I'm not great at the social media, but I do pop up the odd thing. So.
Yeah, but it can be a drain as well. But I sort of think, well, my sense is once you do all of this work and, you know, not work is, but just go on this path of becoming, getting to know yourself and taking back your power, I find then it becomes, well, I'm noticing this more myself, it becomes easier to make decisions or choose, because I'm very clear. I'm clearer than I would have been when I'd all of this baggage weighing me down, and whether it was ancestral or childhood or society or culture, whatever. And it just becomes, you just feel yourself, yeah, this feels right, I'm going to do it, and this is the right next step, isn't it? That life does in another way when you do this, and it's beautiful, the work you're doing. Like, we need more people, and ultimately we can then start, as you said, do this for ourselves. But the more people do it, life just does become not necessarily easier, but I think simpler. I always thought it had to be quite complicated. It isn't really, is it?
No, I think
No,
make life a lot.
there's difference between simple and easy.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think life is easy as such. Because we need challenges, or we don't grow, we don't change. So we need that little bit of uncomfortableness sometimes to give us motivation.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you, Shauna. Is there anything finally you'd like to say before we finish up? Anything that you didn't get to share that you'd like to share that I didn't ask you, because that can happen?
There's so much that could be shared, but no, I think if anyone has any questions, they can get in contact, and yeah, follow me on social media, and they'll see any upcoming events or classes or whatever. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you,
Thanks
Shauna.
so
And
much.
you're welcome. It was my pleasure.